Kamen Rider Zeztz episode 30 proves that Toku fans are easy. At least this Toku fan is. What I mean by that is, I had all these issues with the way that Catastrom had been framed throughout the show, and I'm more interested in having this deep conversation about what it means to have power, to wield power responsibly and morally and nobly, and things like that. And that's the kind of stuff I talked about in my analysis of Zeztz 29, but by the end of Zeztz 30, or maybe even by the middle of it, I didn't really care. There were so many revelations that happened in Zeztz 30, so many big things that happened. The one that I want to focus on now, though, is the birth of Orderm, which I do not like that name. And all is forgiven. I don't really care what happened. I don't really care to continue this conversation about power and how you wield it and what's right to do and what's wrong to do, because there's a new suit, and it's really cool, and I really enjoy the powers. And it's less that I enjoy the suit itself, and it's more that I like what's going on with it. I like the storytelling behind the suit or with the suit, so that it doesn't really bother me anymore. What I mean is this. First of all, I've got to praise the visual storytelling. The visual storytelling is great. Catastrom versus Orderm. You get to see that Catastrom is bulky. The color palette is the same for both, but it's much louder. There's a lot more orange. There's a lot of cracks. There's a lot of things that make it look disorderly and violent, you could say. And those are good design elements. And when the power of Catastrom is flipped to the power of Orderm, you have Baku getting slimmed down. You have these bulky frames that were on him that supported, like the infrastructure scaffolding that supported the bulk of the suit. Those disappear, and they become bars. They're hollow openings. And we get these jagged line patterns that are supposed to represent something. Power, energy, connection, perhaps. Data infrastructure, maybe. Even though this is... that feels a little too technological for what it should be representing. But regardless, that's what it's showing. And it's a lot more of a muted palette. There is still the orange there, but it's mostly orange stripes on the lower legs. His shoes are still I think they're the classic mint green or whatever of the Zeztz shoes from Impact. And it's a lot of silver. And there's this texturing of these armor plates. And the spine actually looks super sick. It's a super dope spine. And for reasons I won't go into now, having a really cool spine on a character has become something that's been more and more interesting to me. And some of my favorite Ultraman designs, basically Blazar and the Galaxy armor, I believe is what it's called, of Jeed. They have really awesome spines, and that really tickles me. So, anyway, like I said, I've been getting more interested in having characters with super cool spines, and this guy has it, and those other guys have it, so I do appreciate that. But, that's right. Getting back on point, of Toku fans being easy, I wanted to be mad, and I wanted to hold on to these arguments about these things, but I really don't care, because the storytelling is so effective. It isn't the suit. The suit is laudable, and the suit is remarkable. It deserves to be spoken about, and I already did that. But one more thing about the suit, just to push and make sure I made the point. I love the design philosophy approach and the contrast made so that there's clear visual storytelling going on with the suit. You go from this hulked out, massive, orange, very broken up looking character who looks like he's like cracking. He's breaking apart. You're tearing me apart, Lisa! And he is being torn apart. And when he hesitates, this is something I still don't like about Catastrom, but I guess it makes sense if you squint and turn your head real hard and think about it enough. When he hesitates, he loses the power. It kind of turns on him and it goes away. So that's what we start off with. When it flips to Orderm, he's calm, he's collected, he's cool, he's sleek, he's slim, and there's like a grace to him, so to speak, and there's a flourish. Instead of pounding on his chest with the fist, he's hitting it with this open hand kind of gesture, which looks a lot more fluid, a lot more elegant, a lot more gentle, and those visual storytelling elements really sell what's going on here. They sell that Orderm is this thing that's superior to Catastrom because it allows him to maintain control. And last review, I talked about when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And then I went on to say that all we have are nails so far. And I guess I didn't finish out the thought saying, but Sieg being able to make a nail, the nightmare, into a non-nail, or like, I don't know, this analogy is going too far, but like Sieg somehow rewriting the dream, the nightmare, so that the nightmare was one and the same with Minami really screwed things up for Baku, and it made him have a really tough moral choice and something to face, something to question about what he's doing and the way he's doing it. But then Orderm gives him the power somehow to separate the victim, the dreamer, from the nightmare, and to destroy the nightmare once again, solving the problem by destroying. But we get to see Orderm uses these constructs that he creates to do different things, and it's a power that's creative. So hopping back to my point earlier, it isn't that using hammers is bad. It isn't that hammering nails is bad. It's that when you cannot separate the nail from something else that will be damaged by the nail, then you can't just whack away with your hammer. That's not okay. It's not an effective strategy. You're going to end up hurting somebody, hurting yourself. So the power of Orderm allows him to do that. And it reminds me of in Takahashi's first Kamen Rider show, X-Aid, at some point, there's this beautiful thing where Emu, the main character, I think it's when he gets Hyper Muteki, which is his final form. It seems like it never ends. There's always another form to have, to exploit. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's Hyper Muteki. He gets the power of Hyper Muteki to actually reprogram and rewrite the bugsters, who are computer code monster men, whatever. And he's able to do something really cool. And I don't remember what it is exactly, but basically he gets to the point where he doesn't just have to keep killing. He gets to save the enemies. He gets to either redeem the enemies specifically, or redeem people who've been victimized and turned into the enemies and merge in this way where it's like, here, hero, choose. Let die the woman, let suffer the little children, or die the woman you love. So Takahashi's doing this really interesting thing where he's putting our hero in a position to make this traumatic, horrible choice that he shouldn't have to make. And with access to more power, he's able to overcome that choice. He no longer has to make the trolley choice. He can flip a switch and have another track appear where he's saving people instead of choosing who dies, is the kind of thing I'm saying. And I really do like that. It's a little bit of a cop-out, but also for children's media, I think it's good. I think it's good for children's media to be complicated and to have death and to have suffering that's unavoidable. But I also don't think it's good for children's media to be bleak and to be nihilistic. And that's why I don't like shows like Gaim. And that's why, I just think Drive is trash. But that's another debate for another time. We can talk about that if you like. Hit me up. We can have a whole big Drive discussion. I already kind of started it with this discussion about the actor who plays Heart and Blazar, Kento. And anyway, that was, wow. That shocked me. But anyway, you can also find that in the pinned comment. So anyway, I don't feel like there's a legitimate answer being given here. And as the fellows of RRR used to say, Toku fans are easy. All you have to do to make them happy is line up people shoulder to shoulder in empty suits that have no personality and no bearing and no meaning associated with the actual character. It's just the suit showing up. I'm kind of victim to that here, so to speak, because I am accepting and swallowing what's happened so far based on, not really based on a cool suit appearing, but because of what the cool suit, it happens to be that we have this kind of emotional revelation, and we have these big reveals, which I haven't gotten into here, which are huge and do need to be discussed at some point. Later, I think, is fine. But like the meaning and the heart behind the form change and the new power being unlocked are beautiful enough and deep enough for me to let go of my frustration with how Catastrom was being framed, because maybe it was a necessary evil. Maybe it was just a part of the process to get to this place where we are now, where Baku's using this extremely powerful power that he's kind of seized on his own, and he's defining how he uses the power and isn't being limited by what people are saying about this particular form of power, which I think is an important thing to say. Some people have commented that Takashi uses guns a lot in his shows, and I think if you look at guns, if you look at whatever, you can make arguments for and against them, and the truth of the matter is, no matter what you do, people are always going to enact violence with whatever tools they have available to them, and that could be guns, or it can be knives, like in the UK, where guns are outlawed for the most part, and people are just stabbing each other instead of shooting each other. So it's about what's deeper. It's about removing not the impulse for violence, but it's about removing the unjust impulse for violence, or the unjust drive to attack and hurt people. That's the problem. We shouldn't all give up our forks, knives, and spoons in order to be safe when we just not stab people with them. Anyway, check my pinned comment for more. I'll have some extras there with my inspector's notes. You can find extra goodies. You can find the link to that video I did about Heart or Drive in Blazar, and also my playlist for all of the rest of my Zeztz coverage and some other things. This is MJ with Henshin Inspection and Rider Tears signing out.